actually guarding garbage.
Get yourself cleaned up. You ever reassigned?
Oh, don't be such a wussy. A little toxic waste isn't going to kill you.
Columbia Pictures presents John Candy. Eugene Levy.
Right.
Armed and Dangerous.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters. We're talking about another John Candy film, Armed and Dangerous from 1986. I grew up on this movie. I loved it as a kid. Rewatching it, it didn't hold up as well for me. What'd you think, Jake? This is your first time watching it, right?
Yeah, this is my first time. I thought it was fine.
Okay.
It was funny. I do think it was interesting seeing Candy almost playing a straight man in this movie. Like,
yeah.
Versus, like, Eugene Levy's kind of the
comedic
more
sidekick.
Sidekick, yeah. And Candy's kind of like the seasoned veteran cop, you know?
Yeah.
So kind of an interesting change of pace from what you'd expect John Candy to be doing in a movie. But
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. I thought the jokes were pretty good. I especially liked the end. Like the big chase scene at the end
the ending's
is pretty
great.
fun and
Yeah.
funny. So
it's a fun movie. Like I said, I grew up on it. I was a big John Candy fan as a kid, and this was on the rotation of John Candy movies. I wanted any John Candy movie I could get, which is funny because I have not seen all of his movies. But this one was on heavy rotation. It was goofy. It was fun. It's action-packed. Again, maybe I just had high expectations because of the nostalgia of my childhood with this movie. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of, again, putting it under a microscope as we do with this podcast, kind of diving into it a little bit more as a movie and reading into the trivia and the backstory of it makes me realize why I have a little bit more, I don't know, reservations with it, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's fun. It's directed by Mark L. Lester, who we know from Commando. And it was written by Harold Ramis, who we know from Ghostbusters and a whole bunch of other movies, Caddyshack. So it's pretty interesting to read about the backstory of it because there's a lot of almost behind-the-scenes drama, kind of. And I think you'll find this fact pretty interesting. At first, it was going to star John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd of Blues Brothers fame, of course, and then there was plans for Harold Ramis to be with Dan Aykroyd, and that didn't go through. Then there was the next iteration with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd as the leads, with John Carpenter set to direct it, which is pretty funny and ironic that we're coming from a John Carpenter month of Halloween. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting and very ironic and cool. But I could not imagine John Carpenter directing a movie like this.
No.
And then in the end, Aykroyd and Carpenter both left the movie, of course. And then it led to Eugene Levy and John Candy being the leads, which I like them in this movie. I think they're great. I think they're funny. Harold Ramis, like I said, he produced the movie, executive produced the movie and wrote it, but he hated it. He hated the iteration of it and the direction that it was going and wanted his name to be removed from the producer credit and screenwriting credit. But his producer credit got removed, but they kept his screenwriting credit. He did not like this. He butted heads with the director, Mark L. Lester, a lot. They specifically disagreed on the tone of the film, with Harold Ramis wanting it to be a buddy cop film, but it to be very slapstick and comedic. And Lester wanted it to be like an action thriller and gritty, with comedic elements kind of sprinkled in. especially from the original script, which you can almost tell that the movie doesn't know what tone it wants to be, in my opinion. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Now I'm kind of like looking back, in my head and like kind of replaying like certain moments.
Did you, real quick, I know you were traveling. Did you watch it on the plane? Or did you watch it in your hotel room?
I watched on the plane.
Okay. Now, I do want to get into that in a little bit of like how that affects your viewing experience being on the plane, which I'm surprised you liked it, having watched it on a plane.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a short flight, so it wasn't,
okay.
It was like
That's true.
just enough to basically fill up the flight for me, so it was convenient.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like, I did enjoy it. It was a nice distraction, from having to fly.
Yeah.
And like, but back to the
tone.
Yeah, I think it is, I think, a little confused at times. There is a pretty drastic shift in the end toward like action. Though there are still some like funny, kind of moments in there. But yeah, I mean, like, I was gonna say one of my favorite aspects of this movie is that the plot is kind of like a gritty, like, crime plot, which is kind of cool, and like it's interesting and compelling and has some stakes, like we talk about, which is not common in a comedy, typically. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a nice element in an otherwise, goofy comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see where there are some moments where it's a little disjointed, particularly in the beginning. I mean, Candy like climbing the tree and stuff to save the cat is, funny.
Yeah.
But getting like pinned for robbing
TV
that
sets.
TV store or whatever, and like getting his like life stripped away is like a little like harsh for a comedy. And that scene is very like somber, rather than having some like comedic elements to it. So yeah, I don't know if there's any other moments that you noticed that were particularly like
Tone shifts.
Yeah, didn't really fit,
No, that's a good one. It's like him losing his thing and then like his badge and gun, and then I don't know, I feel like Eugene Levy is this lawyer where you like make a ton of money potentially, and the judge is just like, yeah, you're not going to be a lawyer anymore, and he's just like, okay. Like, yeah, but
well, he could be like a mediocre public defender or something like that.
Pretty
like,
shitty at it, from what it kind of the movie like it puts out. That idea that he's kind of a shitty lawyer. I'm trying to think if there's any other tone shifts. Like you said, the ending where, it just goes action packed. I think there's kind of that tone shift where, what's his name? Is it Franklin he's Strickland in Back to the Future? Which again, this is a movie that has a lot of 80s actors where you're like, yes, I know him. Which, yeah, I think it's Franklin, if I'm not mistaken.
At the like union meeting.
Yeah. Let me see. I gotta look this up. It's gonna bother me.
Yeah, he's like the union treasurer, I think, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't even tell me. He's not even listed in the like IMDb credits. You have to like go deep into it, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fuck it. I'll find it. But that like the tone shift with him, where he like is going to get killed because he's not going to do this, like, put up I forgot exactly what it was, but he doesn't want to have them collect on the insurance money for the truck getting robbed.
Right, yeah.
And then he gets killed because of it. And like that's pretty like intense. But again, like the movie, the plot is so, it's like complicated for a comedy movie, like you were kind of saying.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's them figuring out there's a union like that's corrupt and you know, stealing all this money and counterfeit, you know, like all this shit. It's interesting. I think it's like they brush on it, but they don't dive too deep into it. And I almost want them to dive deep into it. But again, with it being a comedy, I feel like that's where the tone shift is, where it's like Mark L. Lester wants it to be gritty and be like, to dive into this corruption versus Harold Ramis wants it to be this goofy slapstick comedy where they're in over their heads and it's just like there's too much corruption and they don't know what to do, but they're trying to solve it, and just so haphazardly they solve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But I you know, the cast is great. Like we said, the who's who of 80s actors. We've got Meg Ryan, who we know from When Harry Met Sally and a whole bunch of other movies, of course. Top Gun as well. We got Brian James, who we've mentioned in a handful of movies. The most recent one being Blade Runner. He plays one of the replicants. We also have Jonathan Banks from the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul fame that he is now. But he's in a lot of 80s movies, 48 Hours, whole bunch of movies. And they're good in this movie. They're pretty menacingly. Is that
Menacing?
They're menacing? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Shows
Yeah,
how
I
much
mean, they're clearly like playing this as a gritty like crime thriller, you know.
Yeah. Again, I like, cause I almost want them to dive more into it. I mean, the movie is short. It's like 88 minutes or 86 minutes, one of those, and it flies by. But like you could, again, I hate to say this, but you could remake it and really dive deep into it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's almost like it should be like, I don't know. I'm not as critical of it as you are, which is funny because usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, and especially since I like love this movie as a child.
Yeah, but
And
like,
again,
yeah, like I don't know, because I feel like like this is one where you'd have to pick one or the other. You'd have to go all in on gritty or all in on goofy, like slapstick. But like I don't know if it really
needs
that treatment, because there isn't much that toes this line the way it does, you know.
True.
I don't know.
I found the guy's name. It took me so long. It wasn't Franklin. It was Brackman.
Brackman. Okay.
I was way off. Lou Brackman. James Tolkien. Again, 80s actor. You also have Robert Lagaya or whatever I'm pronouncing his name, who's Michael Carlino, the bad guy. He is awesome. He's in Big. He's great. He's in Scarface, Independence Day. I mean, he's in a ton of great movies. I've always liked him. He's kind of a fucking creep in this movie, though. I don't know what your thoughts on that. There's a lot of like, this is a very 80s movie of like, let's put women in the background as just sex objects, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that in this, but that's kind of like, just again, seeing it as a kid, you don't pick up on that shit. And like seeing it now, you've got, he's just, Carlino, the bad guy, is just like, oh, let's have a threesome to the dates that John Candy and Eugene Levy bring to the mansion party. It's just like, Okay, like that's interesting. And
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like Meg Ryan doesn't need to be in this movie, but she just is as like the good looking, girl that's kind of like it's for a lot of the movie it's really hard to tell if she's going to end up with Candy or Levy by the end.
I know.
Which is
That's another thing I
interesting.
noticed. Yeah. She
But, like-
she there's not a ton of interaction between them.
No, like not enough where you'd be like, oh, like they're going to like get together.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of just there a lot of the time, and like they have a few like passing interactions. And like John Candy like peeps on her changing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of like, oh, she's just kind of there for like the like dudes hitting on chicks,
Yeah.
comedic, kind of relief or whatever. But yeah, and then she ends up with what's his face at the end. It's like, oh,
Eugene Levy.
okay, like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's very rushed, and it could have been developed more, and there was like no chemistry between them really. So
Yeah, no, not really.
yeah, but that's very 80s. This movie is very, very 80s. It's very
Yeah.
80s.
Well, that's kind of the way Commando was too, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's like no chemistry whatsoever. Then they just end up together at the end. And you're just like, oh, okay. Like,
they do, but they don't. They don't kiss in the movie. I know we've had this argument before.
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they don't do anything. Just like it. I remember they filmed a sex scene between them, but then they cut it out.
yeah, that's right. You're right.
So,
Because I praised Commando for not dwelling on the
Yes.
romance and going straight to the bloodbath.
yeah. Yeah, this movie is just very 80s, and I feel like it's fun because of that. Like the soundtrack right away. I mean, when we watched the trailer, the trailer was actually pretty good, by the way. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, it is a decent trailer. Yeah.
The soundtrack's in that. I mean, like we literally both started dancing when we heard it, and it's such a great 80s soundtrack, and I feel like the opening song was like made for this movie because it says "Armed and Dangerous." I didn't look into that, and I probably should have, but
That's also a very 80s thing.
yeah. Here, I'm gonna look it up real quick, but hopefully it doesn't take me 4 years like it did to find Lou Brackman. Armed and Dangerous movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's, Eugene Levy's hair is another very
Yes.
80s. It's
Yes.
like the mullet perm
Yeah.
thing going on.
It's so good. Do you ever notice Eugene Levy? I love Eugene Levy. I think he's hilarious. I love him in everything he's in. Best in Show. If
Oh
you
my
haven't,
God.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Best
so
in Show
fucking
is
good
so
in that. He the way he delivers his lines. He always will be he licks his lips. He'll it's so funny, and I always notice it every time he talks. I don't know if you noticed it.
No, I didn't.
No? Oh, it's it's the way he delivers his lines, and it's so funny because it's like he's such a nerd, but yet it's such a cocky thing to do to just be like, yeah,
Yeah.
but he's such a nerd, and it's so ironic, I guess. To me, it just seems so. It adds to his characters, and I think it's so funny. Next time you watch a movie with him, keep your eye out for that because I notice it in every one of his movies. It's so funny.
I'm due to watch Best in Show again.
Me too.
soon,
I haven't watched it in a while. It's so good. Is that the one where he has two left feet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That movie's so funny.
I have two left feet. No, he really does.
So
good.
yeah, the gym scene. I want to talk about the gym scene in this movie. The gym scene is great. You've got Tom Lister Jr., who is very well known from playing the character Debo in the movie Friday. If you've ever seen it, it's a funny movie. He's also, for people that don't know, he's also in The Dark Knight. He's one of the convicts who's like,
that's right.
Let me do something you should have done years ago. Or like throws out the fucking like detonator for the for the like ferry that they're on. Yeah,
That's what I remember him from.
Yeah, see, I knew it.
Yeah.
He's great in this movie. I like him. I love his cross eyes. Like his eyes are all fucking bugging out and shit. He is jacked in this movie. He's huge. He's just a big guy in general. And his middle name or nickname is Tiny. Tom Tiny Lister. Which he died a couple years ago, unfortunately. But the 80s gym scene with him where they like are going to drop the weights on him is awesome. I love that. I love the jacked women in the gym. And John Candy does a lot of things that were probably acceptable in the 80s and are not acceptable anymore. He punches a dog, which is a no-no for me. Which I thought was funny at the time as a kid. Now I'm like, you punched a dog. Like, I don't like that. But it's just a movie. It's a movie. He also punches one of those gym chicks straight in the fucking face. And I was like shocked by that and also thought that was hilarious. Not that punching women in the face is hilarious. It's just, it just was funny. And yeah, that whole scene is ridiculous. I think that was funny. Them running away and getting into the car and Tom Lister Jr. running after them is hilarious. What's his fucking name in this? I'm dying on all these names. Cap. No, that's the other guy. Dude, no. He doesn't even show up on the fucking main credits again. God damn it. I gotta go into all cast and crew on this one.
I can't remember his name either.
Oh, I think I just found it. Bruno. I don't know. Makes sense,
right.
But apparently, according to him, Tom Lister Jr., much of the film was improvised, which is cool. He said John Candy was the best human being he has ever met, which is awesome. Apparently, he's just so charitable to people and so nice to people. And again, that just makes me love John Candy even more. Just every time I look up trivia on a John Candy movie, people just say how awesome he was and how nice he was. And you can just tell. I mean, look at his face. And also, John Candy shoots a fucking shark in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
That scene is hilarious.
That scene is
so
totally
random.
Unnecessary, but it's hilarious. Yeah.
It's totally random. Not needed at all. Like, they're talking to some dude, that was a guy named Cappy, who they're trying to get information from, and Eugene Levy's just handing him 20s, which is kind of funny. Which every, like, 80s movie has that, where it's like, oh, let's go talk to the informant and give him some money. And I love that they make fun of that in The Naked Gun. It's like so stereotypical. And then he starts fishing and he catches a shark and shoots the fucking thing, and then he's like, it's just wild.
I like how it's got bullet holes in it too when they hang it up.
Yeah. So not only does John Candy punch a dog, punches a woman, he shoots a shark, people.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you got to watch this movie. It's over the top. I mean, here I'm looking at my notes. Just Eugene Levy licks his lips a lot. This is crazy. So, like, again, this is where the plot is just like, it's almost complex in such a simple movie. The money being stolen from the pension and health plan from Guard Dog Security was over $11 million, which is insane in that time. which mobster Michael Carlino, who owned the company, was using as a front to front a major drug deal. Carlino said it to Brackman, the accountant, who converted it into cash just before he was killed by Carlino's henchmen at his own party, as Frank and Norm try to save him. I just was reading that, and it's just like $11 million is insane.
Yeah, it's like, God, it's got to be like $250 million now or something like that. Like, it's absolutely
definitely
insane.
It's definitely not that much, but yeah.
I think it is.
No. Really?
Yeah.
How do we Google this, too?
What year is this?
1986?
1986 to 2024.
Is there an inflation calculator?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Let's see, 1986.
That's wild.
11 million in 2024. 315.5 million.
No fucking way.
It's a shitload of money.
No way. Holy shit. That's insane. Oh my god. Speaking of money, that's just outrageous. Speaking of money, this movie did not make any money.
This is one that I had never heard of at all.
I don't know how I found out about it. I probably just saw it in a Walmart bin, like the $3, $5 DVD bin, and was just like, oh, John Candy's on this cover. I got to get it. That's probably exactly what happened when I was a kid. And yeah. It's a very under the radar movie. Not a lot of people know about it. It had a pretty high budget. It was like $12 million, and it only made like $15 million at the box office. So it definitely didn't make any money. It's not even a cult classic. It's like nothing like that. It's pretty interesting. You might see my dog's tail again. She's coming up. Oh, no, my dog's face. Lay down. I mean, I like the scene where they're like running from. I like the dynamic between the two cops and John Candy, that the two cops that set him up. That one guy, which again I'm going to go back to the IMDb credits, and I'm again dying on these names, and I bet he's not even listed there.
Probably not. He's
that
a
guy,
very minor character.
He was in License to Kill. Here it is. Oh, Don Stroud. Let's see. What else has he been in? Yeah, License to Kill. Oh, he's in Django Unchained. No way.
That's random.
We know him from License to Kill. So, I like them. I almost wanted more dynamic. Like, if anything, they should have been the guys that were in the union, they should have been
that were
behind
like
it.
the enforcers or whatever.
It should have tied into that maybe. I think that would have been cool. But I like when they're in the bar and he beats the shit out of them in front of the girls, and then they get chased by him and they go into the sex shop, which is so random, and there's the homosexual dude and the assless chaps that's eyeballing Eugene Levy, which is pretty funny. And then they go in and there's a peep show, which you basically see everything that girl is showing in that peep show. And this movie's PG-13. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's just a reflection, so they got away with it, but you see it. But I like that they get in drag and they're running. I think that's kind of funny. I think some people may frown upon it in this day and age, but it's of its time and it was hilarious. And apparently John Candy, that the outfit he wears, that with the big white kind of wig and the big red jacket, him and Eugene Levy are Canadian, and they both were on SCTV, which is Canada's SNL. And or like Second City almost. he did a bit in drag with that like exact costume apparently on that show a lot,
Well, okay.
which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
A lot of famous actors came from SCTV, and a lot of people from Best in Show in that movie, like Catherine O'Hara, who's Kevin McAllister's mom in Home Alone. For people that need a good reference, she is, I believe, Canadian and from SCTV as well.
Yeah, that Best in Show is basically like that whole like generation of like
Yeah.
non SNL comedians.
Yeah.
Basically, like everybody is in that movie.
Okay, so here's all the SCT. I just Googled it real fast. So Catherine O'Hara, John Candy, Eugene Levy, Rick Moranis, Joe Flaherty, who's the guy who, for our generation, the guy in Happy Gilmore, you will not make this putt, you jackass. That's Joe
Yeah.
Flaherty. Dave Thomas, who, he's really funny. I forget exactly what he was in. But Harold Ramis, Martin Short. That's pretty much the main people. So that's pretty funny. That's cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's SCTV, like, if you can find like old videos and stuff, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the assless chaps on Eugene Levy's pretty funny.
Yep.
And then you get John Candy in this ridiculous motorcycle outfit, trying to ride his old motorcycle, which is hilarious, but also cool. Like, I loved that as a kid. And he's got that giant fucking revolver that he says
Yeah.
is a 50 caliber, which doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah, that's funny. I like that his bike breaks down and he tries to get into cars, and then he gets into this massive semi truck with this cowboy country boy who calls John Candy Slim, which is hilarious, and says all kinds of hilarious shit and smashes into everyone just willy nilly. And like I
Carrying
thought that,
rocket fuel.
yeah, like what? Just, again, 80s over the top and ridiculous. Yeah, and then we get to the chase scene. That's super fun. You get a guy with a rocket launcher in a fucking ice cream truck.
Yeah.
Like, that blows up, and that's hilarious. And then John Candy shoots the car with Jonathan Banks, and Brian James on it, and that's cool effects. Apparently, that was the most dangerous stunt of the film, and they basically just missed John Candy by like a fucking centimeter, apparently. And if they would have hit him, he would have been dead,
Yeah.
which is crazy. And John Candy was pissed at Mark L. Lester for letting him do that stunt, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, I mean, it's a fun movie. Maybe I am critiquing it a little too hard, but again, we're putting it under a microscope, so I wanted to have a different perspective on it. But I loved it as a kid. I mean, I own it on Blu-ray. Like, not many people fucking own this movie on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to own it. Like, it's a fun movie. I don't know. Some movies just don't hold up as well. Again, if you have nostalgia from a childhood that you're just like, oh, this movie was so great as a kid, and then you rewatch it and you're just like, oh, okay. Like, there's some things that you realize, and it just makes sense.
This is like the most excited you've ever been for one of our like themed months too. So
Oh, I love John
Like-
Candy. I'm a huge John Candy fan. I mean, the movie. My favorite movie is Uncle Buck with John Candy, and that's our movie at the end of the month. And I can't wait to talk about that movie because I love that movie so much. I have there's a lot I want to talk about with that movie, or so I think. It's just near and dear to my childhood and my heart, and yeah, I can't wait to talk about that movie.
you're
and the
gonna
next
rewatch
movie-
it and it's not gonna hold up.
Oh, it's gonna hold up. It's gonna hold up. I knew you would say that. It's gonna hold up. I've watched it I watched it a
you
few
watch
months
it like
ago.
every year, right?
Oh yeah,
it's
so
not like
good.
it's gonna surprise you.
Yeah. That and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Those are like my two favorite John Candy movies. They're both like top tier comedy and movies for me.
Yeah, which we did Planes, Trains, and Automobiles last year.
Yep.
Around
this time. Jinx.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Thanksgiving. And I mean, that's why we're not doing it, because we already did it. So
Yeah.
check out that review. That's a fun, great movie. And John Candy's at his best in that movie. And that's a John Hughes movie, which is
Yep.
awesome. I'm excited for the next one. I'm excited to talk about it. And because that's one John Candy movie I have not seen. So, yeah. Any other finishing thoughts you want to add to this one?
No, I mean it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Worth watching.
Good. Yeah, I agree. It's good comedy. Yeah, check it out. It's very underrated, very not very well known, and it's got our beloved John Candy in it. So check it out. And next week we'll be doing Summer Rental for you guys. So check that one out as well when we have it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yep. See ya.